Hi everyone. Today we are here to discuss on one of the most critical geopolitical event of 2026, that is the Iran-Israel conflict. Joining me in discussion, I have Dr. Padmavati PA, Associate Professor, and Mr. Ajit Shankar Aryan, Assistant Professor of Ahalia School of Management. Welcome.
Thank you.
This war, Israel-Iran conflict, is not just a political war. It is more deeply managerial, economic, and strategic. So, my first question for you both is like, when breaks up, market shatters. What does it mean for you?
The most immediate impact is on the oil and global market supply. With the disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz, which holds a major share of the global oil supply market, there has been more disturbances in the global market worldwide. What we are witnessing is what experts call it as largest energy shocks in the history. For this, translates to MBA students in the purview of, with respect to stock volatility, stock uncertainties, rising inflation, currency volatility, etc. So companies are now facing higher input cost and are financing more risk.
Well, you would be knowing that the Narendra Modi government has reduced and rationalized GST rates. So the market was typically expecting an upward movement in the stock market indices. But what has happened was that after all these geopolitical tensions, the market is not rising up. Instead, it is on a downward curve. So for the last 1.5 years, 1 to 2 years, the market is on a sideways movement. So this typically means that the business sentiment is affected. And we don't know to what extent it will continue to perpetuate. So it has certainly had an impact or negative impact on the market sentiment. And a lot of investors are affected by that. So they are questioning whether they should invest in the stock market or in the mutual funds and all. So that question is there. But people are telling that this is a short-term phenomenon.
Okay, thank you, excellent. So, my next question would be like, what are the strategic lessons that can be learned from this particular conflict?
One key concept is scenario plan. All companies must be prepared for a short-term war, a prolonged war, or a conflict, as well as a regional escalation. This scenario planning actually affects the pricing, investment decision, and global expansion strategies drastically. Sir?
Yeah, I would like to add a few more, perspectives about this. I remember seeing, an ad of TCS, and it clearly mentioned that they are actually contributing to a certainty of an industry and to the company. But if you look at it, this current issue, it has actually taken away this whole concept of certainty. So this is a good lesson for faculty members to communicate to the students that how does the business certainty contributes to a positive business environment and a positive business outlook. Here we do not have certainty now, and that is affecting a lot of companies and a lot of industries. So, for example, it can affect many of these startup companies. The cost of capital goes up. So all these things happens because of the geopolitical scenario going on a negative sentiment.
So, adding to what being a marketing perspective faculty, so adding to what you've said, talking of from the marketing perspective, consumer spending has dropped down drastically. So what they have done is they've reduced the spending and they have moved to essentials rather than from the spending lecturally. They've moved to essentials, and they've become more price sensitive. And the task for the marketers now is to how they have to reposition to this scenario. So I think that would be also one strategic lesson that we can look forward from this war.
Sure.
Can you just brief on the importance of international business and the geopolitical scenario?
Investors are now applying for war risk premiums. It means they are going to invest more higher costs and capital in the affected areas. So this actually impacts more on foreign direct investments as well as global expansion strategies.
Well, there is a strong linkage between the 2 points which you mentioned about, that is international business and also the geopolitics which happens in the world. See, we are not living in an isolated world. If we look at that, anything which happens in one part of the world has an impact on some other part of the world. We speak about that in terms of butterfly effect and all those things. My perspective is that this issue did not happen with the Iranian standoff, the Iranian-Israel US standoff. It has happened earlier also, because the Yemen was attacking the ships which was moving through the Red Sea. So what typically happens is that whenever there is Red Sea and the Hormuz Strait, which I mentioned about earlier, these are choke points. If someone can actually make it as a choke point, if they want to elicit some kind of a pressure and derive some benefit from that. Earlier, the Yemenis were attacking the ships which are going through the Red Sea, and now Iran has put some kind of a pressure on the ships passing through the Hormuz Strait. Now, what typically happens is that it affects the entire globe. People have to relook into the trade route. They have to. Earlier, when the Red Sea was affected, they were traveling across the African continent, through the Cape of Good Hope and all. They were circumventing the Cape of Good Hope. So what happens is that the input cost, actually goes up for a business. So earlier they had a more reduced travel span. Now the travel span has increased, and typically the expenses which is required from a ship, that also increases. So it affects a lot of international business, because people feel that the whole input cost goes up, so that affects the output cost, and that affects the input sentiment, the consumer sentiment, which you have spoken about. That people are actually not consuming the discretionary, but they are focusing only on the essentials. Yeah.
So, according to you, what should be every MBA student's takeaway from this Iran-Israel conflict?
Yeah, it's a good question. All MBA students should have key takeaways with respect to this issue. One of the takeaways could be macroeconomic linkages. It is war in one region affects the entire global economy. It is one area which is being affected, actually tries to affect the other parts of the globe also. That could be a good takeaway according to me, macroeconomic linkage. So what about you?
Well, I believe that one of the lessons that students can learn from this is about diversification. The idea is that the common saying is that don't put all the eggs in one basket. So, that is something which can be learned from this. Earlier, if you look at it, we should credit the government of India for that. Earlier, what was happening is that almost significant percentage of LNG, which we use, has typically come from Qatar only. But almost through last 1 decade, what the government has done is that they have diversified and is sourcing LNG from a lot of other countries. Even though primarily it is still coming from Middle East, but they have diversified. If they haven't diversified, things would have been worse now. So, ma'am, you spoke about that scenario planning earlier. So, the government of India has gone through this scenario planning, and they've done a lot of work on that. So, that has resulted in this diversification. So, the MBA students, one of the key takeaways that they have is that they should risk diversification. Diversifying the risk, and not just focusing on just one market for sourcing what we need, but actually focusing on a lot of other markets. See whether it be other Middle Eastern countries or Russia, from where we are actually sourcing a lot of crude oil. Okay, so that is one thing which students can actually learn from this particular incident.
As Sir said, risk diversification and risk mitigation could be a good takeaway for MBA students.
Yeah.
So, adding along with what you've said, to conclude, the great takeaway would be one is macro linkage that you've spoken about. And how about resilient thinking? That would be another key takeaway. And to take decisions from incomplete information. That's what is a major takeaway that I would believe that has been from this war, because that is what great managers do. Without incomplete information, they have to take decisions. So today's world, what they want is not decisions, they demand decisions. So for an MBA, they have to be more ready to escalate on this particular path.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.